Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today is a dark day in the day of Andy's Dinosaur Reviews because you can see that I have finally decided to throw, quite possibly, the ugliest Schleich dinosaur figure to ever exist up on the channel and review it for anybody that is interested in seeing this horrendous atrocity. This is supposed to be a Schleich Acrocanthosaurus, and it is probably the strangest looking thing that I've ever seen. I have no idea what happened here with Schleich. I kind of feel like they released this as like a gag or a joke to everybody, and that maybe they were just going to recall it at some point due to its pure ugliness, but they have not, and it's still available for sale until they finally get around to making another one, and that is a hopefully much more accurate version than whatever this thing is supposed to be. But either way, I guess let's take a closer look. So starting up here at the head, you can see that the teeth are just terrible looking. They are just insanely large. Look at this tooth right here. That tooth is just like the largest tooth I've ever seen. The paint applied to the face doesn't look bad actually. I mean, the paint is applied pretty nicely. There's some nice shading done to it here and there. Different variation of color throughout, making it look fairly realistic as far as the actual coloration of the face goes. And the eye is painted very nicely. They did give it the snake eyes look, but it doesn't look terrible. It actually looks pretty good as far as this figure goes, and the eyes are nicely glossed, so they look good as well. The jaw is articulated, but you can't really get in there too much to see the detail. It looks okay, but unfortunately if you look straight in the back you can see just the mechanism that makes the articulated jaw work, so that's a little bit of a downside. And if you look here on the inside on the mouth on the side, what would be normally the skin flap that holds the mouth together just looks terrible. It really doesn't even have any detail at all, so that's yet another downside of this figure. Sculpting of the actual head doesn't look terrible. I mean, it's not the best, but it's definitely not up to Schleich standards. You can see that the actual sculpting of the scales and stuff basically just looks like it's all generically sized. It's all basically the one size, but it doesn't look that bad, honestly, on the face. It doesn't look like an Acrocanthosaurus, that's for sure. But as far as the actual sculpting goes, it looks okay, aside from these ugly teeth on the face. I mean, they did put some decent detail work into it. You can see that the face looks a little weird when you look at it straight forward, a little bulky. Almost kind of gives me that V-Rex type of a look from the Peter Jackson King Kong film. Just from the front of the face, he has that wider type of a look on the snout. But then when you turn to the side of the head, it does not look like that at all. Top of the head still kind of looks a little bit nice with the scales. They are very strange looking scales, but they don't look terrible. Now, however, we get to where I think is just the absolute ugliest part of this figure. You can see the little type of a sail that runs along the back of the Acrocanthosaurus is just painted a very odd bright blue, and I think it looks very strange. There's a little bit of detail and sculpt work that's been put into it, but not too much. The actual back looks a little bit okay, but I feel like more could have been done with the paint. But as far as the actual sculpting of the body, you can see that there isn't really too much going on, and it looks very, very generic, especially for Schleich. I would expect way better out of Schleich when it comes to the actual sculpting of the scales and everything else on the body. There's just not really much going on. You can see it just kind of looks like when they took the mold for this, they just took a little putty knife or something and just carved a whole bunch of generic scales and designs into the body and then gave up. And then they just called it a day and said, here's your Acrocanthosaurus, deal with it. The nails on the feet are oddly long and really curved. The feet look a little bit weird. They're definitely sculpted quite strange. There is some muscle tone in the legs, but not too much. You can see a little bit here in the calf muscles and a little bit up here in the upper part. But the overall sculpting of the detail, in my opinion, looks really, really bad. I do not like it at all, especially the underbelly. Just look at how weird that looks. It's very, very strange. Then coming back here into the tail, it's that same generic sculpt work the whole way out as far as the detail goes. And it doesn't really look good out here either. Same deal for the other side. It really looks exactly the same as the other previous side that we've looked at. As far as sculpt work and detail, it pretty much just does not look very good anywhere that you look at it. It has no redeeming sides, no redeeming factors. It just doesn't really look that great. The only thing that I can think of at all as far as this figure goes is if Schleich was going for some kind of a very, very vintage type of a look, like the look that maybe we would have thought it looked like when we had first discovered an Acrocanthosaurus and knew absolutely nothing about it. Maybe that's what they were going for, especially considering it is in the tripod position, the tail's down, dragging on the ground, which I don't know why they would even do that, because Schleich hasn't done that in forever. I don't understand that at all. They are very well aware of the fact that dinosaurs do not drag their tails, but for some reason, the tail of this Acrocanthosaurus is still on the ground, it is still up in a tripod position, and it does still look very ugly. As far as the size goes, from the tail to the head, you are looking at about 9.5 inches, or 24 centimeters. And from the ground to the top of the head, you are looking at about 5 3/4 inches, or about 14.5 centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, and you can see as far as height goes, and really width and everything, they are very similar in size. The T-Rex from Papo is a little bit larger than this ugly Schleich Acrocanthosaurus, but you can get a pretty good idea of the size just simply because it is almost the same size as the Papo Rex. Now, if you are looking for a super realistic looking, very up-to-date, beautiful Acrocanthosaurus model, you definitely need to look somewhere else. But if you're looking for a very vintage, ugly looking, potentially joke of a dinosaur figure, you might want to buy this guy. I don't really know why I even purchased it, since I had actually seen a lot of pictures of it previously before purchasing it, and I knew going in that it was pretty ugly, but for some reason the head sculpt in a few pictures that I had seen kind of made it look a little bit interesting. So I gave it a shot because it's not the most expensive dinosaur, and I do like to try to keep my Schleich collection up to date and complete as best as I can anyway. But looking back, I probably shouldn't have purchased this thing, as it's really more of an eyesore than anything. And I'm going to keep my fingers crossed and hope that they redo the Acrocanthosaurus and retire this thing very soon, because honestly, Schleich can do way better. I had just recently seen pictures of their upcoming Spinosaurus for next year, and it may be the best Spinosaurus figure that is currently out on the market right now as far as these mainstream figures go. So this Acrocanthosaurus, I know, is a terrible lazy attempt from Schleich, and they could do way, way better than this. If their attempt was for a very vintage looking figure, then I guess I can kind of dig it. I mean, I do enjoy a vintage look once in a while, and this thing is as vintage as it could possibly get with the look, so I kind of like it, I think, just for that reason alone. But if I'm looking at it from a scientifically accurate standpoint, this is the ugliest Acrocanthosaurus figure that I've ever seen in my entire life, probably. Either way, if you do for some reason want to buy this, if you're just a big fan of the vintage look, I will throw a link in the description for you to purchase this guy on everythingdinosaur.com or on amazon.com if it's available still on there. If you don't want to buy it, I do not blame you one bit. So just hold out for a future release from Schleich and hope that they make a much better version of this Acrocanthosaurus. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.